Track cleaning has to be up there with ballasting as one of the least fun jobs on the layout, particularly in those hard to reach places. But it doesn't have to be a chore, and in this video I'll show you how I make light work of it. And as with my ballasting guide, I'll let you into some of my secrets, with some time-saving hints so you can spend more time with the fun bit of running trains. And here's my not-so-secret secret to perfectly clean rails, the easy way with Dapol's track cleaning wagon. The big questions being, does it work, and is it worth the money? There are several track cleaning units out there, but most are passive, like the Hornby track cleaning coach, relying on sprung emery pads to skim the top of the rails. Dapol's offering is rather more sophisticated, with an electric motor that spins a variety of accessories to polish and vacuum the track surface. And it's equipped with a sponge pad to distribute some track cleaning fluid, supplied through a small hole in the bottom of the reservoir, regulated with a brass weight. We'll look at those various accessories in detail later. But now let's see it in operation, firstly with a DC power supply. Just press the button on top and the dial on your DC controller will dictate the speed of the accessory. It will of course also dictate the speed of your locomotive, which you'll need to pull it around, as it's not self-propelled. Now my layout usually runs using DCC, which for the track cleaner offers a couple of advantages. Unlike DC, I can operate the speed of the track cleaner motor independently of the loco, so I can have my accessory going at full speed while the train crawls around the track, getting the maximum benefit of the cleaning head. And while the track cleaner is DCC ready, I will have to get a chip, which will add extra expense. Or will I? A less known feature of my Hornby Select controller is that it can be used to run a single analog locomotive using the 00 code. In practice, that's not usually that useful, but here it's ideal for controlling our single motor, which doesn't require much finesse. Then when that's up to speed, I can key in the code for our loco and gently pull away, towing our track cleaning coach to do its valuable work all the way around the track. Now, I'm not sure that all DCC controllers have that 00 analog option, so I will return and cover adding a DCC chip later on in the video. But now I want to return to track cleaning operations by preparing the various accessories with new pads. I usually start a track cleaning session by running the vacuum around, mainly because that's the last accessory I used, but it also gives time to change any pads as necessary, which is by no means every time you clean the track. Just peel off the old pad, getting rid of as much adhesive as possible, and stick on the new one. From new, the track cleaner comes with several spares of both the abrasive and the polishing pads, but extras are readily available, which is invaluable, particularly if, like me, you bought your track cleaner second-hand. Buying from somewhere like eBay will definitely save you money, and I think I paid around about £20 less than the retail price. But don't expect to get any spare pads, so the differential to new is a little bit less than that. My second-hand track cleaner was also missing the little tool for removing the vacuum fan, which isn't a huge problem, as you can prise it off using a couple of plastic cards. But for this video, I thought I'd have a go at making my own little tool from a plastic membership card, copying the pictures in the instruction sheet and taking the measurements from the fan itself, then trying to replicate the shape the best I can, bearing in mind this is only intended to be a prototype, and a very rough one at that. I figure as long as I've got enough to clip underneath the fan edge and a slot in the middle to create enough flexibility, it should do the trick. And I can cut it out using a combination of sturdy scissors and a sharp scalpel blade, being very careful of my fingers, obviously. The finished article is far from beautiful, but it's only taken me about 20 minutes to do, and let's see if it works before I invest more time making a more elegant version too. And it's pretty good, lifting the fan easily off the metal spindle, ready for the fine abrasive pad on its sprung mounting for the next phase of the clean. Dapol themselves recommend the abrasive head is used only occasionally, and certainly, in most cases, a couple of circuits is plenty, before removing the head using finger and thumb. This time, a special tool isn't required. And we can replace the vacuum fan, which is much easier to put in than it is to take out. Then we can set the track cleaner off again, vacuuming up any more loose debris and anything that the abrasive head has created, which can be knocked out of the gauze cover and emptied from the dustbin. Then we can use our homemade tool to remove the vacuum fan again, replacing it with the fabric polishing head for the final phase. making sure it springs up and down and doesn't stick to the body. For polishing, the rotating fabric disc works in conjunction with the sponge pad, which supplies a small amount of the track cleaning fluid. And for the first time, it matters which direction the track cleaner is running, as the fluid needs to be applied ahead of the rotating disc. And with the track cleaner facing the right way, we can add a few drops of the track cleaning fluid, just enough for this cleaning run, and replace the lid and switch on. Then once again, with the DCC controller set to 00, we can get the cleaning pad up to full speed before switching over to the code for our loco and pulling away gently. Just one thing to note here is that there is a safety cutout for the motor, so if it overspins due to excessive power input, the motor will stop. Nothing to worry about, just wait 5 minutes and off you go again. The number of circuits very much depends on how dirty your track is and how much pleasure watching the cleaner go round gives you, but around about 5 minutes should be more than enough. Then I usually give it another vacuum before wiping any excess fluid out of the reservoir and returning to its box, ready for the next outing. But now, even though I've shown you don't necessarily need a decoder to run the track cleaner on DCC, I'll run through the relatively simple task of fitting one anyway. And the instructions from Dapol are pretty clear. First of all, you'll need to pop out one of the axles by flexing the sides of the bogie, and then unscrew the pivot before removing the assembly to reveal 4 screws. Only 2 of these are shown in the instruction sheet, and you can leave the other 2 well alone, just removing the outer ones, before easing off the outer covering. With the reservoir cap still in place, that's a little bit stiff, and probably best to remove first. You'll also see the top bit of the push button has fallen in, and you can just tip that off, along with the weight from the reservoir, carefully put to one side so we don't lose them. Now we can see the circuit board, with its 8-pin decoder socket, from which we need to remove the blanking plate, ready for the plug from our decoder. An obvious choice of decoder is one from the Hatton's direct pin range, which can plug straight into the top of the socket. We just need to get it the right way round, with the rather faintly labelled pin number 1 into the right corner of the socket, which is labelled on the circuit board. It turns out to be quite a tight fit, with the end of the chip very close to the edge of the cover, but it will go on, with gentle pressure closing the gap. Just don't forget to reinstall the button like I did. But after a second go, the retaining screws can be replaced, along with the pivot screw for the bogie, and finally the axle, just flexing the sides before clipping in place. And when everything's back together, we can get it back on track. We still need to press the on-off button, but then, using the decoder's factory setting of 03, our DCC controller takes over. But here I hit an unexpected snag. When I try and change the address of the Hatton's chip, it doesn't want to accept my new code, and the LED just keeps flashing. I'm guessing it's a compatibility issue with my Hornby Select. And of course, I could just use the factory setting of 03, but I decide to switch out the decoder and replace it with a Gauge Master one. With just 2 functions, it's a bit more basic, but that's plenty just to control my motor. It's also quite a bit chunkier, but with some careful cajoling and adding a bit of double-sided tape to stop the button continually falling off, I can get the cover back on. And remembering that that button needs to be pressed for the chip to be live, this time the decoder has accepted my program, with the confirmatory 3 flashes of the LED. And one little advantage of using a proper chip instead of the 00 analog control is that it's much quieter, but it's good to know that that's an option. And now, with the far from arduous task of track cleaning out of the way, I can get on and run some trains. So going back to the questions from the beginning of the video, I think I've shown that the Dapol track cleaner really does work, ensuring we have great electrical connections with all of the wheels on our train, including the ones for the carriage lights. And whilst you can do it on a budget by buying second hand and using the 00 trick instead of fitting a decoder, I think my conclusion is that it might be better just to buy new and get all the accessories as well as the tool for the vacuum head, and go for the DCC decoder just for a quiet life, if nothing else. If you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, why not check out some of my other model rail projects, or anything else you find intriguing. And of course, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for all sorts of practical stuff.